Okay. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Rob. Um, I wasn't totally sure about how to start because my career path is a little bit tortuous, different than most because I'm trained as a physicist. Currently, I'm a professor in physics at Dell State University. I graduated from University of Maryland, and my degree is in chemical physics. And I started my career working for NASA and building optical spectrometer for a space mission. And for a couple, I think we had two missions there, and then decided at some point, after a couple of years at the National Institute of Standard Technology doing neutron scattering, decided to join NIH when a new group in biophysics was created at NIH, and tried to capitalize on my experience in optical physics and build some instrument and learn a bit of biophysical, biophysical phenomena at NIH. Stayed there for about maybe about 9.5
That'd be awesome
years.
if you could. I'm just gonna post it.
I'm sorry? Hello? So,
keep going, Hacene.
so I then I joined NIH, and after NIH, for about 10 years, I decided to join Delaware State University after a brief passage at Albert Einstein College of Medicine for a year and a half, working as the director of the imaging facility there. Then I joined the DSU in 2010, and since then, I've been at the Optical Science Center for Applied Optics, which is OSCAR that Rob mentioned. And there we have tried to develop my research in biophysical phenomena in general and the use of optical physics in particular, and building some new technologies there. So in a sense, I'm not a traditional type of researcher that focuses on one thing since the beginning, because most of physicists will be working in low temperature, for example, physics, will stay and build a career in low temperature physics. But these days, things are becoming so interdisciplinary. A lot of groups are working together that most of physicists will try to join and build a program, not an individual program, but a team type of program, where they have a department that is associated with another department and researchers working together on very different topics, so they lend their expertise back and forth. And what helped me when I came to DSU in particular, this is probably what I would like to suggest to a lot of people, is capitalize of on things you have before you join a program. And what I mean by that, in my case, I had some instrument I built at NIH, and before joining DSU, I have asked the people who are working there whether they will be interested in the instrument or not. And luckily for me, they said no. So, and we had an agreement with them, or I had an agreement with the group at NIH. And same thing I did with the University of Maryland, where I graduated. I started asking them what they want to get rid of. I became like a scavenger, in a sense, to pick and get all the instrument they have and put it together in my lab. And there are two reasons for that. For me is to have some equipment to do and collect some pyramid data, train student, have some sort of a lab. But it's not the most advanced equipment, but it's an opportunity to ask a granting agency to say, I have this, and I have worked with this instrument, and I have expertise on this one, but it needs improvement. So it helps to build some capabilities based on what you have. It's not necessarily like the best thing, And in my case, for example, I get to the Department of Defense to get me a brand new instrument on the fluorescence correlation spectroscopy, which we had an instrument. I told them what's missing, what's not, and why I need something better to advance my research. And that's what I sort of built my stuff on my expertise in optical physics and try to connect it with a very specific problem and use whatever equipment I have to build my lab and train students. I trained 2 graduate students who came to my lab. One of them now is a postdoc at the University of New Mexico. And another one went overseas and created his own company overseas. And so I think I'm glad that something came out of my lab. And now I have mostly undergraduate student. I'm looking for graduate student to fill the gap that the researcher. Being at DSU is a kind of a different setting because we're not, the capabilities of research are not pretty big. The resources are not abundant. So we have to, with the limited resources, we have to work and get some money from the dean, sometimes from grants that we're writing, sometimes try to get some funding for the student as well. So it's mostly a primary undergraduate institution. And so the mission is different. So if we focus too much on graduate student and research, it's not necessarily the primary thing for the institution. So we have to kind of balance between our role as the role of the university to be a PY type, while we're trying to, in my case and several of the faculty in the Oscar building, to develop a research program with graduate students. We have been to a certain extent quite successful because we attracted funding from NASA. We attracted some funding from NSF, and we attracted some funding from NIH. And in this case, for NIH, for example, I'm also a recipient of the pilot project as an embryo when I joined the DSU. That helped me to build and develop my program to the next step. In terms of research, as I said, I'm a biophysics and mostly now trying to connect with biomedical research. I try to exploit whatever expertise I have and connect with other programs. So it's mostly collaborative, and we write grants together. And recently we're trying to put some grants in analyzing data from biomedical research, so mostly data science. That's included in part of the program itself, while doing optical spectroscopy on the other side. So I think I don't know whether it's been a long introduction or not. I would like to see whether some people are interested or have any questions at this stage, or there are other things I need, if interested, to elaborate on.
Thanks, Hacene. I'm going to turn that